What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers movie starring Tom Hanks, out in theaters now. Just kind of a beautiful, heartwarming, kind of great for families type of movie. I think Tom Hanks kills it as Mr. Rogers. There's literally a point in this movie where Tom Hanks is like, he turns to like watch something on a screen, and he turned like literally just turned into Mr. Rogers. Like the mannerisms, the speech, everything was spot on. Uh, definitely great casting. But now that I've said all of the positive things I have to say, I mean, it is Thanksgiving, by the way. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I didn't really like this movie. It was a big disappointment. I was going into this movie just expecting a great time watching Tom Hanks be Mr. Rogers. The Mr. Rogers documentary, what is it? Mr. Rogers Neighborhood or something like that. I forget what the documentary is, but definitely a good documentary. Highly recommend everybody go watch if you want to know more about Mr. Rogers. He's just like one of those solid, good dudes through and through. The sad part is, the thing I didn't like about this movie is that it's a bait and switch. It's a movie that's marketed to make you think that it's about Mr. Rogers. But it's not about Mr. Rogers. This movie is not about Mr. Rogers at all. Although the end of the movie does wrap up the film doesn't make me completely like angry at this movie, just disappointed. It wraps up nice, where it's a nice family film, but don't go in expecting to see a whole lot of Tom Hanks. Let's just put it that way. The movie reminded me quite a bit of the documentary The Amazing Jonathan documentary, which is the Hulu documentary that came out a few months ago, that has nothing to do with The Amazing Jonathan. It's all about the director and his time making this documentary that's not even about The Amazing Jonathan. If you want to see a documentary about The Amazing Jonathan, go watch Always Amazing for free on YouTube. That is a really good documentary about Amazing Jonathan. But the Amazing Jonathan documentary on Hulu is a bait and switch, which I do not like. It's kind of insulting to go into a movie or a documentary where where it's being sold as one thing, and then it ends up just being about something else. This movie, it's about a reporter who's going to write a story on Mr. Rogers, and the movie is about that reporter. I don't even know who the reporter is. Matthew Rise, right? Not even first build. He should be first build. Tom Hanks, not the lead in this movie. He is a supporting character at best. He's in certain parts of the film, but very little of this movie has to do with actually telling any kind of story about Mr. Rogers at all. It is really all about this reporter, Lloyd Vogel, and his family drama, which the end of this movie, the end of Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, it wraps it up nice, where it's a nice, there's a nice family resolution. All of the drama that the reporter was going through ended up being fixed by Mr. Rogers. But yeah, this was very disappointing in a lot of ways. It's just like, if Tom Hanks gets nominated for Best Actor, I want to burn everything down, because he wasn't the lead in this. It's like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. It's like, imagine going to watch a Star Wars movie, right? And it's sold as a Star Wars movie, but then ends up being a documentary on making widgets, right? But it's a widget that you see in a Star Wars film at one point. That's like what this shit is. It's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But it's Thanksgiving, so you got to be thankful. It is a movie that you can go see with it's a family. It's all about this guy who has family problems, right? His dad was cheating. I'm going to spoil his shit. His dad cheating on his mom towards the end of her life. She's like dying from cancer. What, I don't know what it was. And he cheated on her and started a new family and wasn't around towards the end of her life. And so this reporter is carrying that around with him, very angry. There's an outburst at his sister's wedding, which is it's ridiculous, ridiculous that this so much of this is just about that reporter. Lloyd Vogel is the lead of this movie. He stole the movie from Mr. Rogers. And considering Mr. Rogers, if you watch the documentary about Mr. Rogers, like all of the things that he's done and why he did what he did and tried to advocate for, proper education for kids, to help kids deal with problems in their life in a positive way. Like there's so many things about Mr. Rogers and what he did in his life that this movie completely just doesn't even give a shit about. This movie doesn't give a shit about Mr. Rogers. Like he's there as just a way to sell wolf tickets for you to go in and just see how a reporter my life is so hard. I have a wife that loves me and a child that's healthy, but I have problems with my daddy. It's just like I wanted to see a Mr. Rogers movie, and it wasn't a Mr. Rogers movie. It was a bait and switch that just kind of makes me angry. That I mean, at least I'm just so happy. Like if this movie didn't have the ending that it had, where it really wraps it up. I mean, the movie in itself is almost like like Mr. Rogers, an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Is that what it's even called? I'm so like confused right now as all the names. Even the poster of this movie is a ripoff of the documentary poster, right? But the documentary is actually about Mr. Rogers. This movie is not about Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks is like screen time of this movie is very little. It is highly focused on the reporter. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about a reporter who's an asshole? Like, by all means, an asshole in this movie, and it's just like, oh, he has daddy issues. That's why he's an asshole. Like, it's just I don't know. It's like a piece of shit that's decorated with high quality glitter and sold as something completely different. It just whatever. I'm sure people love it. I'm sure it'll get nominated for stuff, but it's insulting. It's insulting to the audience to sell a movie that's supposed to be a Mr. Rogers movie, but sneak in this like bullshit. Like, just tell a story about Mr. Rogers. I'm sure there's things in his life that you could have followed Tom Hanks through, like maybe the time where he had to go like save PBS or whatever, save funding for PBS. Like that moment, like if that was like not even considered, it's like like part of a montage at the beginning of this movie. It's just ridiculous, man. It's so ridiculous. But people love it. It's just like, it's a decent family film. So it's Thanksgiving. Go watch it with your family, I guess. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not a horrible film. The acting is good. The writing is good. It's just the story. It's a fucking bait and switch. It's not a Mr. Rogers movie as far as I'm concerned. He's a side character, right? Horrible. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. There's nothing else I have to say about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. But I did enjoy the other things I kind of enjoyed. They did, like, a lot of the B-roll in this movie was just kind of that miniature town, the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood miniatures, which is cute. Like, aesthetically, it was created very well. I just didn't like the story. It was a bait and switch, which I don't appreciate. So that's it. I mean, Tom Hanks is amazing. So give it up for that. But whoever greenlit this story is just I don't get it. I don't get it. But like, you have a guy that has a very interesting, unique life, and you do nothing to focus on that life. I don't even know if if Lloyd Vogel is a real person. I'm sure it is somewhat. I don't know if his family drama is real. It really feels like they just created this fake family drama just to have something for Mr. Rogers to like put hands on and cure. Which is whatever. So don't go watch this movie. Wait until it's out. Wait until it's streaming or whatever. But don't go in expecting to watch a Mr. Rogers movie. But that's it for this episode. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Go buy my artwork over at inspireddisorder.com and save 25% when you use coupon code RTS. Follow me on social media at Ray Taylor. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!